Entaro Adun, Executor. I, Judicator Kisrath, have been asked to brief you on the circumstances surrounding your dispatch to Eridas. The High Council has entrusted this region to my command, so that I may oversee a mission of the utmost importance. In the age before creation, the Xel'Naga regarded an ancient artifact above all others for its immeasurable power. Named the Argus Stone, it is thought to be located within the fabled city of Taledon. We believe our observers have uncovered evidence of Taledonian ruins here on Eridas. A Terran expedition is also investigating the ruins. They defile the site with their presence, and therefore must be eliminated immediately. Destroy the science building near the temple, and then escort my ship to the beacon our observers have placed nearby.
Hello everyone and welcome to StarCraft Retribution. StarCraft Retribution is another expansion pack for StarCraft. It's made by WizardWorks software. It's not it's a semi-official expansion pack, just like StarCraft Insurrection. It was made by Blizzard, but it is authorized by Blizzard, so it's semi-official. I don't think it's considered to be canon, even though they've never explicitly said that it's not canon. And for this first episode here, the first episode of the Protoss campaign, you're going to get a post-commentary, because for some reason my microphone decided not to record when I originally played this. So I didn't want to replay the mission because I do this as a semi-blind playthrough. So I wanted to preserve that. You start with a pretty decent amount of resources here, and you start with Kithrath, the Protoss hero. In fact, you have so many crystals that you can't really harvest them all in the beginning. And they also start you off with well-protected structures, which is pretty nice. And two easily accessible Vesping gaziers, so it's quite nice. The mission is not super easy because the entire jungle is crawling with marines, but you can go all predator on them if you want to. And the humans here, they don't have super high tech, but they do have access to stuff like battle cruisers and tanks. So I don't think they ever build nukes or anything. In fact, I don't think the campaigner ever builds nukes. They either have nuke silos or they do not. That's how it seems to be. So here I'm just doing some exploration. The map is fairly large. It's not super empty, but it suffers a little bit from the Insurrection syndrome, in the sense that the map aren't quite as tight and dense, which isn't all that great. And these are not Terran scientists; those are just Terran civilians. The plot here is that we've landed on a Terran world because there's a Xel'Naga temple either. They never quite explain whether it's a temple from the Xel'Naga or a temple dedicated to the Xel'Naga. But we want to secure the temple, or the ruins in general, not the ruins of a city, not just a temple. Because apparently there are some valuable MacGuffins there. The Terrans are leading an expedition here as well. So unlike Insurrection, which takes place during the first episode of StarCraft, so the Terran campaign, this one here takes place after the Terran Dominion has been established, but before the Overmind has been destroyed. So either at some point during the Protoss or the Zerg campaign. It's not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure when it takes place. Overall, it's not too important. The jungle here is crawling with marines, but thankfully our hero is quite beefy, and we can always build shield generators to quickly recharge the shields, which is actually quite useful when you're defending your base with units only. And they're also quite cheap, only cost 100 crystals, so together with pylons they're actually the cheapest building you can build, and they come half charged, which is quite nice as well, even though I have the feeling I'm still underutilizing them. And we also start with the 7X core, which we couldn't even build yet because we haven't established a gateway yet. And this mission here doesn't really start you off super easy, because they do give you some means to fight, such as tanks, so you have to be a little bit careful there, but it's not too difficult. I didn't really bother with air units here. I guess you can, because you ultimately only need to destroy the science facility in the south and then bring your hero to the hotspot. You don't need to destroy everything. Even though if you want to march in safely, then it's easier to destroy the blue Terrans here. There's the blue and green Terrans. And the green Terrans are in the southeastern half of the map, and the blue Terrans are in the southwestern half of the map. The green base is a little bit better fortified. It's also past the bridge, which makes this a little bit more difficult, but overall it's not too difficult. And here I'm just building some of these photon cannons as a diversion. They're always kind of nice to distract the enemies, because they definitely focus on those first. Same goes for especially the colonies of the Zerg, and they're good to just distract the enemies a little bit while you bring in some more powerful stuff. Shield upgrades are always useful because everybody profits from it, and armor is of course good as well, but ideally you want your shields to last, which obviously they won't always, but that's okay. And this expansion pack here was not, well, it was built for just the basic StarCraft game without Brood War. But if you play Brood War and then load this as a random scenario, you do have access to the Brood War technology, as you do have in StarCraft Insurrection as well. But the Insurrection was not made by these guys here. That was made by Aztec Soft. It's either Aztec Tech or Aztec Software or Aztec. I think it was Aztec. It is a company, but I think I almost built a second robotics facility there for no particular reason. And they were specialized in unofficial add-ons and like semi-official add-ons like this. Even though, well, this may as well be their only authorized expansion pack. I'm not quite sure why Blizzard did that. Maybe so they got a cut of the money. Maybe they thought, yeah, they're going to release it anyway, because back in the mid to late 90s it was very common to have these unofficial expansion packs. There were a lot of them for Command. There's a ton of them for Command & Conquer, and almost all of them just consist of player-made maps downloaded from the internet. Very few have any original content. There's a ton of them for Age of Empires, several games. Some of them are German exclusive, some of them are French exclusive, and most of them are English though. There's also a couple of them for games like Doom and Hexen. In fact, there are entire expansions or modifications that pretend to be new games but are ultimately just like map, not even map hacks. Some of them are just like edited maps for Doom, and they were sold on the shelves as new games. So that was the 90s equivalent of the cheap Steam Unity Asset Store built game. So it exists back then as well, and some of these went for like 20 to 30 pounds or so. Some of them were really ridiculously expensive, and you didn't really know what you were getting unless you had someone recommend it to you. And of course you could read magazines, you could ask friends, but even though the internet was around, even the internet, not just the World Wide Web, it was a little bit of a different time. You wouldn't just find immediate information on it, and there were no digital stores. It wasn't like, well, that guy got into the way of the other guy. There wasn't really any way of just getting an easy review with Steam. You can just check out the Steam reviews. If there are no Steam reviews, you can be a little bit careful, and you can always get a refund. A refund based on the game being bad back then it's a bit dodgy. If the game is actually not working, if it's technically faulty, then they have to give you one, obviously. But that's a bit of a different story. Anyway, so you can build Dark Templars here, but the humans do have scanners, so Dark Templars will only be so useful. And your Dark Templars, using them against the Zerg is a little bit difficult, because Zerg generally have overlords flying everywhere, so it's a bit difficult to utilize them to their full potential. They're still powerful, even if they're not cloaked, obviously. Yeah, but here they're quite generous with Vespene gas. In fact, I think one of these sewers contains 10,000, one of them contains 6,000 Vespene gas or something ridiculous like that. So you're really not going to run out of Vespene gas. The crystal fields are quite generous as well, even though not all the crystals are reachable. And here we're just stalking the jungle, going Predator on the humans. I'm just building a second gateway, because at one point we will have enough money to build in both at the same time. These fire beds here are a bit annoying, because we have to get close in. which is not true for most other units, but oh well. We can just recharge our shields here. Let's build a shield battery here, they're quite cheap. And in situations like this they can be quite useful, even though the Zealot shields recharge quickly anyway, because they're generally weak, for better or worse. But oh well. Generally Dragoons and Zealots do the job here. You can build the bigger guns like Reavers, but Reavers are so slow, you have to pay for them extra, and if you don't manage them precisely, then you could get Archons as well, but didn't bother with that. If you don't do that, then they tend to just waste their shot on a single unit. If it's a unit in a circling swarm, those will obviously be useful because they can then dish out their splash damage, in which case you're probably going to destroy an entire group of circlings. I think even without upgrades and with the circlings having upgrades, they are never going to survive a Reaver attack. So yeah, these shields had already recharged, but I guess those shields can be useful later on as well. The hero is actually quite tough, so you can do quite a lot with the hero alone, but nevertheless it's a bit dangerous because you never know. And so here, the blue planned an attack here, Marines plus some tanks. The tanks are always a bit critical because at this point here we don't have any air units except for our heroes, so you want to be careful here. And once in siege mode, the siege tanks are rather lethal. But you do have an okay amount of troops here. And Zealots, especially with the lag upgrade, can rush tanks with relative ease. And the tanks also have a tendency of killing one another when they're that close. So I'm pretty sure that tank was blown up by his friend, not by me. Or I damaged it, but it was ultimately blown up by the other tank. And yeah, that photon cannon did its job of distracting the enemy. All my shields are pretty much lost due to splash damage, but my Zealots aren't damaged that badly actually, so that went surprisingly well. I thought it would be a lot worse. Yeah, ultimately... yeah, Zealots, I always underestimate them when I'm fighting them, and I'm always surprised how powerful they are when I have them myself, which I really shouldn't be at this point because I've gone through so many of these missions here. Yeah, I think Marines are still my favorite, like, basic unit here, but I like Zealots a lot too. The science facilities down here, you can just attack it outright, but there's a good chance that they will send all their units after you. And that's usually what the AI does. They're pretty good at just sorting out the entire air and just send it after you. And you don't really want to lose your hero here. Obviously you do lose a mission if you lose your hero, which isn't always true in Insurrection because some of the maps are poorly coded. Yeah, here we can explore a little bit with our Dark Templar. They're probably going to scan for this guy here. Yeah, just like this, which is a bit annoying. Otherwise you could be all cool and just stealth kill all of these guys. But oh well. This assault force here isn't really all that scary. There's less units, and they just bring Goliaths instead of their siege tanks, so that's not that bad. Probably should have included that Dark Templar in my Zealot group, which I never did for some reason, but it doesn't matter too much. There are also these cats here, stalking the jungle. They never attack you. Occasionally they can be in the way, but if you want to, you can just kill them. But it doesn't really. Most of the time, I don't really bother. You can actually use them as spies. I'm pretty sure you can infect them with parasite. And yeah, so here was just trying to kill this tank here because the tanks they're fairly dangerous, and I didn't quite manage to do that. But oh well. Should have brought maybe a second Dark Templar or just not bother to try that. But whatever. We have a good amount of resources, so it's time to build up the army. And you do have a Stargate here. I did check whether or not we have carriers. You can get carriers, but you don't always need carriers. And I already utilize carriers often enough, so I may as well use some different units. Could have built some more Dark Templars. They're not actually that expensive in this mission here because I have so much Vespene gas and comparatively little to spend it on. But at the end of the day, It doesn't really matter all that much. The shield upgrade, I always like those. There's more shields, it's just better for everything. And for the Protoss it also means that pretty much everybody's affected by them. All kinds of units, which is always nice. I've always found it relatively difficult with the Protoss to scout properly because the Observer is obviously the best scout. Well, actually they do have a ship that's actually called Scout, which is a bit more sturdy and also faster at least without the upgrade. But the Observer is of course nice to just have them on the map, have them hang around and reveal everything. But they always feel comparably high tech. You need a building just for them, and that always feels like a bit of a hassle, but that's okay. It's probably because I'm just used to Terrans and Terrans having just all their stuff in comparatively few buildings, but I'm probably just imagining that. Then again, you do have the Zerg, which also have, well, they have the hatchery layer high for everything, but then again they need tech buildings to get access to their technology, so that doesn't really count, I suppose. Oh well. Also we're playing as Red. Protoss here, I think in the campaign we never did that. I think you only had other red heroes, none at all, or the enemy was red. And I think it's actually a pretty good color choice. I think Protoss look best when they're white, red or blue. It's probably, in my opinion, red and white looking the best. For Terrans, blue is actually pretty good. Blue is also kind of the human good guy tech faction color, even though you could argue that the Protoss are probably the most technologically advanced faction. In fact, so technologically advanced that you can't even fix Protoss technology. Once it's damaged, that's just it. It's damaged forever. And I really could have sworn that you can fix Protoss tech with Terran SCVs, but it doesn't really seem to be possible. Neither buildings nor units. But oh well, I guess it sort of makes sense. Even though, I mean, I think you could still just patch it up. But I guess the welder or whatever, or blowtorch or whatever the SCV has just doesn't cut it quite. But that's okay. So our zealot troop is shipping up nicely. And other than that, there's not really that much to do. We can explore a little bit more, but all we will see is just that there's green in the east, which we already know anyway, so it's not terribly interesting. And you are needed as anti-air, even though the humans don't have that much. They have some Wraith, but they seem to have to research stealth, so they don't have it right away. Otherwise, Wraith are not that dangerous, especially not to ground units, just like Scouts, their ground weapons are a lot weaker than their anti-air weapons. Or air-to-air weapons. But the AI always turns invisible if they can, if they attack. It's the same with the scanning. Whenever you attack something with a stealth unit and you're attacking a Terran faction, they always auto-scan that area. You can just drain their scanner like that, but that's the only thing the AI uses the scanner for. If I remember correctly, I've never seen them scan anything else. And I'm not quite sure that the AI can see anything. They might not have the Shroud of War, but I'm pretty sure they have the fog, because at least they can't attack up close willy-nilly, except in some missions they seem to be able to do that, but it could just be me underestimating the sight radius of certain units. There's pretty much nothing here except for more anti-air, which was to be expected, and some rocks, random rocks. The map looks overall okay. It's again a bit dull. We just have this one jungle here, and then the two bases. That's kind of it. There's nothing really in the jungle. They could have added some rocks there and whatnot, but overall it's fine. And the size is okay. Could be a bit smaller, but yeah, I never really thought I would say that, but after seeing the Retribution Insurrection maps, a lot of them just feel way too large. A little bit vast and empty, but let's just... oh, yeah, let's just clear out the jungle here, and they actually turned out they had some stuff there. But that's... I almost want to call them fan-made maps for you. Even though this isn't quite fan-made, because it's an official expansion, or an authorized expansion, whatever term you want to use here. Even though Blizzard never really mentioned it from what I know. I think one of the devs at one point, StarCraft 2 devs, I think, commented on the add-ons and saying that they are not really canon, or at least that he wasn't considering them canon. Even though I assume that it's probably not the last word, because it's not like an executive decision or anything. They actually attacked me here, which wasn't really all that scary, because no... I think, did they have stealth? I'm not even sure about that. Almost nobody got hurt, and overall pretty much nothing happened. They just killed another photon cannon, but that's okay, because that's what photon cannons are for. To distract the enemy until actual troops arrive. I wish the map would shower me in crystals as it does shower me in Vespene gas, but that didn't quite happen. And here's more stealth units. Of course that doesn't, well, not really stealth, but hidden behind trees. Of course, that's a Command & Conquer staple actually, infantry behind trees. But it doesn't work against the AI, of course, because they just don't see the map like that, from what I know. There's actually a starport here. I think they might have built that. I'm not quite sure that was here when I exploded my Dark Templar, and it turned out that they had a lot more siege tanks here than I thought. This actually, it looks pretty bad, but actually in the end, at the end of the day, it went better than I thought. Because as many troops as they have here, the Zels are strong, and I had almost all the upgrades, not quite all of them, but almost all of them. And siege tanks, despite their name, obviously they are tanks, but they're thematically they are tanks, but they're not actually tank units, they're more like artillery. And they're actually quite fragile. And easily destroyed, especially compared to some of the Zerg and Protoss units, which just never seem to die. Of course, siege tanks need a while to actually start getting into siege mode, and you can just run away. In that case, they often just go into siege mode and leave it then when you run away, and then you can get in when they siege again. You can get in close, and they won't do anything. I actually thought I should retreat here, but it turned out we actually won this encounter here, which was pretty amazing. And once all the siege tanks were dead, that was pretty much it. And we also had more reinforcements there, including the observer. I didn't really want to lose here, and I don't think the Terrans had many upgrades. They didn't start with upgrades, or they only started with one, maybe. But apart from that, not as much of a challenge as I thought once I arrived. Most of my dragoons lost their shields, but most of them did actually survive. And the fresh Zels here really helped. It was pretty. They're a little bit like Zerg. They just eat away buildings. That's pretty sweet. And this all the blue has. This is not their expansion base. This is all they have. They did build a battlecruiser here. I'm always kind of scared of battlecruisers, but battlecruisers are actually, they're kind of slow and lumbering. They didn't have any upgrades for them, or at least, yeah, they didn't have any upgrades. And they actually go down pretty quickly against good anti-air, including Hydralisks. I always underestimate that. They're not actually that sturdy. They're not quite as bad as carriers, and even carriers are not that sturdy. It's just that if you let the AI handle it, including let your unit AI handle it, then they tend to try to shoot down the interceptors, which never goes right. The thing is also, there's no really sturdy unit in this game. I mean, there are the Ultralisk, the battlecruiser, and the carrier, but even those, if you have the right units, they still go down comparably quickly. So it's not like, oh, they just last forever, and you have to really wail on them, unless it's a special unit, of course, like the Tarask or the Insurrection. What's it called? The Blade Champ? No, not Blade Champion. Something like that. So some edgy name. Yeah, those last long, but those are just like hero units. Essentially, well, sort of semi-hero units. So it's not really surprising that those last longer. This guy here never stealthed. I'm not quite sure. Maybe because I killed that guy too quickly, or because we really hadn't given him enough time to gather energy to stealth. So that was the last production facility. They did bring in this transport here. Not quite sure what that guy wanted, but we'll never find out, because that transport is now dead. These bunkers here got evacuated when I attacked. I don't remember that from the vanilla and Brood War campaign, but in on these maps here, the AI tends to do that. They just evacuate their bunkers a lot more often. Maybe I just don't remember it like this. These guys here, no problem for my Dark Templars, obviously. And that was pretty much it for blue. All on this half here is just some random units and a lot of anti-air. And that was pretty much it. So there was one green Goliath there. That's not too much of a challenge. And yeah, that was it for this half here. There's a science facility, but obviously you can't fight back. And they're just two civilians. There's not even a guard for this facility here. That civilian actually survived one more hit than I thought that guy would survive. And that's pretty much it. At least for this half of the battle.
This is only a conduit to the main ruins that lie on the other side of the river. However, I am sensing psionic resonations from the Zelnaga artifacts at that site. Take me to the ruins, and I will see to the humans myself.
Yep, he means that literally, so now we have to bring him to the next beacon here. I wasn't quite sure how much resistance would be in between. You can actually just rush through. So I killed those guys. Oh, that wasn't too much of a challenge, even though my guys got surprisingly damaged considering that. I just fought firebats, but that was probably because there's a lot of anti-air. Because usually I can kill firebats with ranged units, so once you actually have to get in close, they are a bit more lethal than one might think. So we're closed off here. There's just some anti-air, just destroyed that out of spite. You can actually take the green base as well, obviously. There's a bridge, so you don't have to drop in guys or anything, but it's a bit harder. At least it looks a bit tougher. And there's no real reason to do that. I guess if I had air units, carriers, so I could do it, but I'm not even sure whether I had access to carriers in this map here, because I never quite tried. Also, for some reason, there was a little bit of a delay with the speech of this guy, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just got the observer sight radius here, which I would never quite recognize. Also, these cats, there's 5 of them around my nexus. For some reason, these guys thought refuge in my base. I'm not quite sure what's up with that. It's probably random. There's also a bunch of science vessels. Those can EMP your shields away, which, well, ultimately doesn't really matter that much if there's nothing else to shoot you down. Also, those columns there's a lot of those around here as well. So there's ghosts as well, so those can of course shut you down, but they didn't seem to have that ability, the lockdown ability here. And I don't think they'll start with it. I think they only start with their... Yeah, they killed a couple of my probes there. I think they only start with their nuke ability. Well, if you want to call it an ability, really. In any case, I just decided to do it the hard way and just power through. It's not that difficult. The scouts are surprisingly fast, and the missile turrets need a moment to actually start firing. Ghosts don't really deal that much damage. And the science vessel decided not really to do anything. So you can just power through. And then everybody explodes, so he meant dealing with the Terrans literally, they all died when he just reached that beacon for some reason. So that was the first Protoss mission, the first mission of StarCraft Retribution. That was actually an okay mission. Not amazing, but the map was alright. We'll see what the rest of the campaign has to offer. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you then. Take care and goodbye.